Over the years, Subaru has seen massive sales growth here in America. In fact, over the last 81 months, the company has claimed that every month they've seen their sales increase. Now, one of the vehicles that's designed that has helped them do this was the previous generation Forester. Subaru said about 20% of all new Subarus sold last year was a Forester. So for the all-new 5th generation, Subaru definitely wanted to play it safe with this vehicle. And to showcase this all-new version, they've flown me and a bunch of other journalists to just outside of Asheville, North Carolina to drive this thing. And although it may not look all that new, Subaru promises that it's riding on an all-new platform. It's new from the ground up. So I know a lot of you are probably wondering, does this all-new Forester have what it takes to stand out in the very crowded compact SUV segment? That's what we're here to find out. So with Subaru selling a little over 15,000 of these in August of 2018, it's a pretty important car for the brand. It's their second bestseller, so you can see exactly why Subaru took a lot of safe choices when it comes to the actual design of this vehicle. It doesn't look all that different. You kind of have to squint at it. In fact, it takes a lot of styling cues from the current generation Outback, which itself is its own unique, handsome car. The one thing that I really love about the redesign is LED headlights are standard. LED low and high beams. You have the signature C-shaped LED that you find on other Subarus. The turn signal is an incandescent bulb, and then if you guys go for the new sport trimmer up, you'll get LED fog lights. This is the touring grade. It's the top of the line, and you'll know it's a touring because it's got the chrome bezel around the fog light and the silver trim on the lower front fascia. And overall, I think the Forester is still a pretty handsome looking SUV. I'm just kind of sad that, you know, it's one of those vehicles where you have to squint at it to actually see the differences, but I can see also why Subaru didn't want to make too many changes. Now, unlike the old generation, this is now riding on an all-new platform. This is the Subaru global product architecture, the same one that I've shown you on the Impreza, on the Ascent. I haven't shown you guys a Crosstrek just yet, but riding on this new platform means this is a much stiffer, stronger vehicle. And when you look at the wheel sizes, these are the optional 18-inch wheels that you get actually standard on the touring grade. They kind of have a black machine finish. The sport trim also has an 18, the limiteds have an 18. If you guys go for a base trim, you'll have a 17-inch steel wheel, which is definitely a little bit on the lower end when you guys look at the class. Now, being on an all-new platform, Subaru did make the Forester larger, but they also said that owners didn't want it to get that much bigger. So its wheelbase at 105.1 inches long is only about an inch larger than the old one, and at about 182 inches long, it's only about 3/4 of an inch longer overall. Subaru also made this vehicle wider by 3/4 of an inch. Again, Subaru wanted to make it bigger, but they also didn't want to make it too big because that's something that owners have always really liked, which is the smaller proportions of the Forester. Now at the rear, this is where you're going to see the most changes to the actual design. I'm not a fan of the rear taillight styling. I actually think I prefer the previous generation. You do get an LED combination taillight where this is the LED brake light. You have an incandescent bulb for the turn signal and the reverse light. If you guys go for the sport trim, Subaru offers like a black accent here with some orange accents to kind of give it a little bit more of a sportier look. I just don't really like that C shape that you kind of see on a lot of Honda products, which kind of look like a lobster claw. It's just a really interesting design. Down here you can see it has a single outlet chrome exhaust tip, which you'll get on the sport trims and up, and then the limiteds or the tourings will give you this silver painted on the rear fascia, which gives it kind of more of a premium vibe. Now, one thing that Subaru really improved was the rear cargo area. Because this vehicle is wider, they really maximize that in the cargo area. Now, Subaru says the actual width of the cargo area, this is the opening here, is 5 inches bigger than the previous generation, which also makes it about 6 inches bigger than everything else. Basically, what that allows you to do is you can put like a pair of golf clubs here and just place it in there. You don't have to kind of angle it to get it in. Subaru says this is the largest space in the segment at around 33 cubic feet of cargo space. If you fold down the rear seats, which you can do from a little button here, it'll fold it down and give you a nearly completely flat floor. And then you're looking at around 76 cubic feet of space. So that is more cargo space than what you get in the CR-V and in the RAV4. So this is the largest in the segment. And one thing you guys will really appreciate when you look underneath the floor here, there's a little bit of storage here, but Subaru thankfully also gives you a temporary spare tire. so you don't have to deal with a fix-a-flat kit. Most models will also have a power tailgate, which Subaru says is quicker to open and close versus the previous generation, which should make a lot of owners happy. So the outside of the new Forester may not look all that different, but let's see if Subaru has made significant changes to the interior of this new version. Now you can see here's the key fob for the vehicle. It's the current Subaru key fob. If you guys go for a premium trim and up, Subaru does include the push button start with smart key access system. In the past, you always had to get like a limited trim, so Subaru's kind of starting to expand it across the actual trims of this vehicle. Now as you approach the door handle, you're going to notice the door handles on this particular one are chrome to show that it's a touring. There's a little pad right here where you can just touch your finger there. It'll lock the doors for you. To unlock it, Subaru does a sensor on the back of the handle. Just touch that and it'll unlock the door for you. Now, the touring trim does come with these brown leather seats, which is kind of the two-tone with the black. It's definitely a really nice addition. It makes the interior look a lot more upscale and premium. I wouldn't say it's necessarily luxurious, but it kind of has like a premium utilitarian look. The seats themselves are just heated. And they're relatively comfortable. They come with like a 10-way power adjustment for the driver. The touring trim upgrades you to an 8-way power for the passenger, which is a new feature for 2019. No cooled seats. Subaru only offers that on the Ascent, which is their most expensive and largest offering. But you can see here, getting inside the interior of the new Forester, it has that traditional easy step-in height, which you guys know and love with Foresters. And then when you close the door, it sounds pretty solid, so that's adding to that impression of quality. Now, with every other vehicle, just put your foot on the brake. There's a button here to fire up the engine. Now the gauges, as you can see, did a really nice sweep, and they look very attractive, if slightly familiar. This interior itself, if you guys have spent some time in the latest Subaru Impreza or the new Subaru Ascent, it literally looks like a carbon copy. And I'm kind of surprised that Subaru is not kind of differentiating the design. It's a nice, handsome looking design that's user-friendly, but I kind of wish that Subaru made a few changes in it to make it look more distinctive from a lot of the similar vehicles in the segment. And you can see the materials in here have been upgraded versus the old one. You have stitching here, which is the faux stitching. It's soft touch on this part of the dash. There's more stitching here with the real leather that is mimicked from the seats. This upper panel here is also soft touch, which is definitely nice. Looking at the door panel here, this portion is soft touch, and then there's more of that leather stitching right here, a nice padded area here, and then there's a good storage area here where you can put your phone. The windows are express up down for the front windows. The rear is not express up or down. That's okay, I kind of expected it in this segment. No power folding mirrors, but you do have heated mirrors. You have two-person memory seats. Now, looking at the center's display here, you can see these gauges are very familiar, very colorful. I do like the way the actual infotainment or the instrument panel looks. I do wish that the screen was made a little bit larger, the LCD screen, but if you guys want to change what you want to see over here, you can just cycle through them with buttons on the steering wheel. Subaru again also has another screen that's mimicked at the top there. Now you're probably wondering, what are these sensors here? This is for the driver focus feature, which is a new feature on the touring grade only. This basically has a driver recognition system where it looks at your face and it will let you know if you're driving distracted. If you're looking away from the road, looking down, the system will actually beep you and tell you to pay attention. It can also save up to 5 different driver profiles, which again is kind of an extension of the memory seats, where it'll keep your mirror settings, your seat position settings, and all that stuff. So really nice feature, great for distracted driving. A lot of people, I'm assuming, are going to love that in the touring option or the touring trim. Now looking at the center stack here, you can see this is the upgraded 8-inch display, the Subaru Starlink display. It does have the TomTom based navigation system, which you can see here. It works pretty much like every other TomTom system that you guys have seen from the aftermarket. It's relatively good. Nothing super groundbreaking, but when you kind of combine it with the actual upper screen there, it makes for a nice setup. You can change the actual screen at the top there by pushing this little info button on the steering wheel, which again offers several different views, customizations and whatnot. You can see there's the Subaru EyeSight, which kind of mimics the turn signals and the brake lights. You can see the actual all-wheel drive system. It'll show you your ground clearance, your angle of approach, or whatever. If the vehicle's off-road, it'll show a throttle position indicator, weather. I mean, it's all a really nice system. I really like this in a lot of Subaru products. Now when you put the vehicle into reverse here, you can see there is a backup camera, which is standard. It does have trajectory, and it does have reverse automatic braking, which is an optional feature standard on the touring grade. And then you also have parking sensors in the rear. So it's not bad. The quality is good, but no 360 camera. That's something that you can find on some competitors. Subaru is a little bit lacking there. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is standard equipment across the board. If you guys go for a lower trim, you'll have a smaller 6.5-inch display, and then Subaru also offers a display without the embedded navigation system. And then this also has a 4G LTE hotspot, which is definitely nice. This is basically the latest version of Subaru Starlink. We like it. It looks good, although you do notice here that the sunroof, the light from the sunroof is kind of washing out the screen. So that's something that I noticed here out in the bright sunlight. Dual zone climate control is optional. You only get that on the touring grades and up. The lower trims will have a single zone automatic climate control, which is nice. No wireless charging. Instead, you have a little place here where you could put your phone, a little bit more storage. The nice leather here is kind of mimicked down the bottom here that adds more quality or impression of quality. This is controlling the CVT transmission, their lineartronic. It's very traditional. It's got a manual mode here, which you access through the paddle shifters, which offers 7 different ratios. The steering wheel itself is tilt telescoping. It's a heated steering wheel, which is nice. Your drive mode selector is here where you can go to sport, or you can go to intelligent. The sport trim adds a sport sharp, but it replaces the sport mode here, which I'll show you guys later in the test drive. Down here you can see this is Subaru's X mode all-wheel drive. Now, as with every other Subaru, symmetrical all-wheel drive is standard. There's a new mode this year where Subaru gives you like a dual mode. Basically, you can kind of tell it whether you're in deep mud or snow or dirt, where it's like a low traction and a high traction mode. This basically allows the car to give it some wheel spin when you're like stuck in sand or mud. That's something that a lot of Subaru owners wish that they added. So think of this almost as like a replacement for a center diff, maybe. Well, Subaru has an off-road course later on that's planned, so I'll show you guys that later in the test drive. You have 2-level heated seats over here with switches that look very similar to the old generation. Electronic parking brake is now standard equipment, which got rid of the old electronic or conventional handbrake. You have an automatic vehicle hold feature. There's 2 cup holders, a little bit more storage. This is nice and padded right here with relatively small storage in the center console area here. Some competitors definitely offer more space. This also doesn't adjust, but it's nice and padded. Above you can see panoramic sunroof, standard on the premium grades and up. Not quite as large as some competitors, but it's nice that Subaru gives you that feature. You have your power moonroof controls here. You do have LED lighting in the cabin, which is great. And the seats, I find them to be really comfortable and supportive. Wish they were cooled, but not every vehicle in the segment offers that. I found them comfortable on this long trip that I was driving the vehicle in. And overall, you still have a very good visibility in this vehicle, really great 360 view, low dash. It feels nice and narrow compared to some of the wider competitors. I think a lot of people are going to get into the new Forester and basically feel right at home. So when you look at the back seat of the new Forester, because Subaru has stretched the wheelbase by about an inch, they basically gave us 1.5 inches more legroom in the back. So at 39.5 inches of legroom, this makes it easily one of the most spacious in the segment. I also am noticing that the floor here is almost nearly flat, but there's plenty of legroom here. Now, in terms of features, this is the touring grade, so you do have things like rear seat vents, you have 2-level heated seats, you have 2 USB charging ports, and overall I think a lot of people are going to be pretty happy. Now above me there is a panoramic sunroof that's standard on the premium grades and up, as I said earlier, which does let in a good amount of light, although it doesn't go all the way to the back like some competitors, so it's kind of like a tweener panoramic sunroof. But in terms of the actual comfort, the materials are hard touch plastic here, but there's more of that brown leather here on the back. There's some interesting weave texture plastic on the actual door panels. And in terms of the creature comforts, again, there's an armrest that folds down with some nice cup holders here. Subaru gives you 2 map pockets here, which basically allows you to put your smartphone there. And overall, people are going to get into the back seat. It's very usable. The doors open much larger. There's more leg room, so this is definitely one of the roomiest back seats in the segment. Under the hood of the redesigned Forester, I'm sad to report that if you're an enthusiast, Subaru has killed the offerings that have made this vehicle appealing in the past. The old 2-liter turbo from the WRX, that's gone. The old 6-speed manual, that's also gone because nobody bought it. Instead, Subaru has given us a redesigned version of the 2.5-liter Boxer Flat 4. It's a naturally aspirated engine, and now they've added direct injection. They say it's about 90% new versus the old engine, and it's about 4 pounds lighter, so not a huge difference. Now, thankfully, because of the new technology, it does have more horsepower, 182 to be exact, which is up 12, and 176 pound-feet of torque, which is only up 2. Now, the engine itself only goes out through a redesigned lineartronic CVT, which offers 7 virtual ratios if you guys use the manual mode. It also has the Subaru Drive programs where you have the Sport Sharp on the Sport trim, or the Intelligent mode, so that's something that the Forester in the past didn't have on the base engine. Now, this combination does produce very good fuel economy. That's the whole reason why Subaru went with this route. It's rated to get 26 in the city and 33 on the highway, which is about 1 mpg better than the old one, and it basically is the best mpg in the segment if you guys are looking at all-wheel drive vehicles. Only the CR-V with front-wheel drive beats it in terms of the highway by 1 mpg, so Subaru is very proud of that. As it sits, this one weighs around 3,500 pounds, so it's about 100 pounds heavier because of the new platform, because of the additional sound deadening. This one will also tow around 1,500 pounds, so it's a little bit weak, but with a larger gas tank, this thing does run on regular. Subaru says it can go almost 550 miles of cruising if you guys are just going to be driving it on the highway. Now, with only 182 horsepower, you know, a CVT, it doesn't make for the most exciting combination, but let's get it out on the road and see how it all performs. So the one thing that Subaru had mentioned with this car is it's the first Subaru in America to have auto start stop. So when you come to a stop, it shuts off, and then when it restarts, it's relatively quick in that regard. But it's interesting that it took Subaru this long, you know, to actually put start-stop technology in a non-hybrid vehicle. I totally forgot the Ascent didn't even have that. The Crosstrek hybrid was technically the first one, but how many people actually bought that vehicle? Another first for the Forester is the fact that they've added auto door locks to this vehicle. So when you drive up to speed, the doors lock for you automatically, and they'll also unlock for you. It's hard to believe that the old Forester just didn't have that feature. It's amazing how sometimes we kind of take things like that for granted when you look at the other brands. But first driving in the new Subaru Forester, I have to say, if you guys have driven the other new crop of Subaru products that are on this platform, it's a nice driving vehicle. It feels nice and solid. It feels nice and stiff. It feels very much like a great chassis to start with. The ride quality has also been noticeably improved with this vehicle. Actually, I wanted to complain about the fact that they don't offer 19-inch wheels on this car, but I can see why Subaru did that. It's got a really comfortable ride quality that's probably among the best in the industry. Another thing that they've also really improved is the interior noise levels. The old one was very loud. It was basically the WRX of crossovers, and it had the road noise, it had the engine noise when you guys had the turbo engine. This one now, with more sound deadening, it's got thicker glass. It's approaching, kind of more of a premium vibe, and you get that, experience in this car right off the bat. The visibility, also that trademark 360, good view all around in this car is pretty much preserved, and it's one of the reasons why people are so obsessed with Subarus. You kind of can get in this thing, you can just see out of it really well, you can drive it really easily, and the steering has been retuned as well. It's electric, it's relatively quick in its responses, and you can find yourself having relatively decent amounts of fun in this vehicle if you find your favorite back road. But the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that no more turbo engine. That really makes me sad, but nobody really bought that thing. So let's come to a stop here. Let's see if this base engine or this updated engine kind of makes a difference. I'm going to put it into a sport mode here, which is already in, and then floor it. And that was a little lag there from the restart. Now the CVT tries its best to mimic gears, and this thing feels painfully slow. Now I will say that I'm up kind of at a higher elevation, and this is where naturally aspirated engines kind of fall on their face. But the old one took about 9 seconds to get to 60. This feels pretty similar in that regard. I am noticing the CVT is a good transmission though. They've retuned it, and it's a really responsive transmission. Whenever you kind of prod your foot, it is really quick to downshift ratios, and this is probably a road that not very many owners are going to be attacking at higher speeds, but it's kind of a good test of a vehicle's handling dynamics. And there is pretty good body lean in this car, but not any more than what you'd expect from an SUV like this. The steering also is relatively quick. Put your foot down here and come on. I really miss that turbo engine. This is definitely not the WRX of crossovers anymore, but surprisingly, this is the engine that everybody buys. It's very much class competitive with something like the RAV4. I haven't driven the new one yet, the CX-5. This is quicker feeling than the last Rogue I drove, but not as quick as the new CR-V with its turbo engine. That thing is just really fast for the segment. And then vehicles like, of course, the 2-liter turbo that you can get in the Equinox or the Terrain, those are also going to be quicker than this. But again, my foot went to the floor, and it's really quick to downshift the ratio and give this thing a little bit more power. And in traditional, Boxer 4 sense, the engine has a pretty unique characteristic growl to it. I like the noise, but some people may attribute the noise as being rough, unrefined. But if you guys are used to driving Subarus, it's a noise that you're probably all really familiar with. But again, the transmission, very responsive. It gets out of, to speed just fine. It's really only what I'm noticing on the highway, it's lacking a little bit in the passing power. Now, in terms of these paddles here, it does offer 7 gear ratios, fake gear ratios. And that was actually, that beep you heard was the the driver focus system telling me to keep my eyes on the road. So that camera over there actually looks at your face and your eyes, kind of similar to what Cadillac offers on the CT6 Super Cruise, but I guess kind of a dumbed down version. Subaru says it's the first mainstream system to offer something like that. It's going to be a great feature if you guys have kids that are teenagers that drive, that are probably constantly texting on their phones. It's something that'll kind of yell at you to pay attention to the road. So that's a nice little safety feature to have. Another thing that Subaru made standard is the eyesight driver assist technology. It's standard across the board. It's now joining the Ascent as the second Subaru to have that as standard. So you have features like automatic emergency braking in the front. You have lane departure warning with lane keep assist. You have adaptive cruise control with full speed range. All those features are standard. What is optional is the blind spot monitoring that this one is standard with the Touring, optional on all the other trims. And then you also have reverse automatic braking, which only the Touring comes standard with that feature. So Subaru is really throwing in the features, they're throwing in the tech, and they're really delivering a car that's very pleasant to drive. So although they've kind of gone a different direction where the enthusiasts are probably really upset about the fact that the manual's gone, the turbo's gone, the vast majority of buyers in this segment are going to get into the new Forester and find plenty to like with how this thing drives, the interior space, and just the overall everyday livability of it. Now, although most Subaru owners will probably keep their vehicle actually on the road, Subaru does love to tout up the fact that this vehicle offers 8.7 inches of ground clearance. So let's cue it over to the off-road course here where they've set up this little trail for us to drive through and see how the Forester performs in those conditions. So moving on to the off-road course, this is probably an area where you'd think most owners would never take their Subaru. Let me first put it in drive. This is probably an area where you think most owners would never take their Subaru off-roading, but Subaru says this vehicle has the capability. I've got the X mode system here into its deep snow and mud mode, and they have this little off-road event or course set up for us here. There's some mud, there's some gravel, there's some dirt. Let's see if there's actually any rocks. So when you put the X mode system into this deep snow mode, it automatically turns off the stability control. And basically this dual mode system is going to allow for some wheel slippage, which has been a problem with CVTs in the past. I've actually never off-road a Forester before, but I did drive like a CRV, the new one with the CVT on an off-road course a couple months ago, and it didn't really like it. So I'll be curious to see how the Forester handles this. Now, with the X mode system in this mode, it has hill descent control, so I'm feeling it just applying the brakes as I'm going down this hill, which is nice.
Walkable, it's walkable, just be careful.
Don't slip on the mud.
You don't have X mode, this does.
It's definitely a lot steeper watching him go down that hill. So first coming up to this portion of the off-road course, it's a very steep decline here, or hill that I'm going down. And again, with the X mode in this mode, the car's hitting the brakes for me. I don't even have my foot on the brake. It's actually doing the braking for me. And this is very, very steep. I'm actually really surprised. It's a lot steeper looking, I guess, or it doesn't look as steep on camera, but here, again, look, I'm not touching the brakes. It's doing it all for me. And all I have to do is basically steer. It's applying the brakes for me. And that's really nice. I mean, this is a kind of a capability that you didn't think you'd need until you're in this kind of situation.
It's pretty steep.
It was steep. I was like, wow, that's a very steep hill. And I didn't have to.
The hill? Like, why did I get back in?
I don't know. And I didn't even have to like touch the brakes.
Yeah, I did it all myself.
It did it all itself.
Ooh, yeah.
So now we're gonna go up this same hill that we basically went down on a different portion. And with Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system, they have added torque vectoring this year. And it's kind of no piece of cake. I mean, 8.7 inches of ground clearance. And I'm just applying light throttle. It's appropriating the power. And I'm not really noticing the CVT here. So this is a great overall package that a lot of owners are going to really appreciate, especially those who do some light off-roading with their SUVs. Around this time last year, Subaru actually loaned me a 2017 2.0 XT Touring, and I was a big fan of that vehicle. I proclaimed it to be the WRX of crossovers. It was one of the quickest SUVs in the segment. So I was pretty disappointed when I found out that Subaru killed off the 2-liter turbo, but you kind of can only have yourself to blame because nobody bought the turbo version. So after spending the day here in North Carolina with this all-new version, how do I feel about the all-new 5th generation Forester? Well, as you guys saw, Subaru has refined a lot of the elements that were kind of weak about the previous generation. The old one was a little bit noisy. The interior is now much quieter. There's a lot more cargo space in the rear or in the trunk area, and there's more legroom in the back. And that's something that the old one didn't really need, but it kind of helps to differentiate this car from vehicles like the CR-V and the RAV4. And while its handling is still relatively sporty, what really is the sad part is the fact that this is now significantly slower versus the turbo version, although the new engine is smoother, quieter, more fuel efficient, and more refined versus the old 2.5 liter version. So with all that said, where does that leave the Forester in the actual segment? Well, it still has a lot of the Subaru quirks. It still has that traditional boxer engine growl. It has the unique transmission. It has the off-road capability with the 8.7 inches of actual ground clearance. And if you guys can get past the strange looking rear end design, it's still a relatively handsome looking car that I think will make a lot of current Subaru owners very happy, and it'll still be able to bring in a lot of new owners who have never had a Subaru before to this vehicle. So with all that said, what's it going to cost to put an all-new Forester in your driveway? Well, when this vehicle does go on sale by the beginning of next month, it will have a starting MSRP of $24,295 plus destination. That represents a $500 increase in price over the old model, which is pretty reasonable considering the fact that the Subaru EyeSight now comes standard. You have automatic climate control as standard. You have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, which wasn't available on the old one. Now, most of you are probably going to go up to the premium trim, which adds features like the pano sunroof, the power driver's seat. You can option in things like blind spot monitoring, the power liftgate. That one starts $2,000 higher for like $26,295. That new sport trim that I showed you guys earlier also is around $2,000 more for the orange accents, the black wheels, the sports sharp, and the drive modes. That's like around $28,000. Going to the limited is the only way you're going to get leather with the standard power liftgate. That starts at around $30,000. This touring grade has a lot of new features in it, and it's basically fully loaded. There's no options on this one. This one stickers for around $34,295, which is pretty reasonable. It's about $1,000 more than the old 2.5i Touring, but I have to say, with all the new tech features, the quieter, more refined cabin, the additional interior room, and the improved fuel economy, this should easily make the Forester one of the top vehicles in the segment. So if you guys are looking for a new compact crossover, this one should definitely be at the very top of your list. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2019 Subaru Forester 2.5i Touring. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video. Which Subaru says has 7 gears if you guys use the paddle shift, and damn it, sorry, there's a fly over here. I was like, oh. Let me just redo it. Those stupid flies, like they're right in my line of sight and I was trying to get rid of them. It's like, they're distracting me. Okay, let's just get this done. Oh, this video is hard to film.